Welcome to the storyline progression for Unit 4, Engineering a Shoe. I want to lead off with that this unit brings up a lot of student choice and a lot of elements from human-centered design out of the design school at Stanford. And it's very intentional to pick a shoe. That being just if texting and driving and the bungee jump didn't grab a student, here's a chance to go in a completely different direction, use design, art, STEM all together. And you can see that in our essential question. How do design and STEM work together to bring imagination into reality? Before we go into the tasks, I do want to situate this in the year. So in the timeline of the year, this is Unit 4, so somewhere in the middle. We can also see from the graphic on the right, you can't read it, but you can just see that there's more and more performance expectations in each unit. So we're ramping that up. And something else that's really big in Unit 4, needed to have one unit to have a focal point, is informational text. Well, there's informational text in every unit. There's some heavy lifting in this unit, as you'll see in the summative assessments. Additionally, in terms of career and college readiness, there's an emphasis on entrepreneurship that comes up many times. Here are the performance expectations, and if you want to read them in full, I suggest pausing. And then let's move on. So the 40-second version of the unit is after the hook, which I'll reveal in a second, we start exploring, just tinkering. Then we move into our anchoring experiment that allows us to get the mathematical model for impulse. Then, because of the performance expectations and evidence statements, that really we did need another task to go deeper into momentum. That is a little bit less connected to the shoe. It's a great day. It's one day, it's 3 videos that get students laughing, enjoying themselves. But because it is disconnected, some teachers definitely do move it to the end of the unit. Or if they're not going to reach every performance expectation, this is one that people have cut. But finishing out the progression, we have a task around data mining for Newton's second law, and then put everything together to come up with a data-informed design decision of a shoe. All right, so the hook, simple, and many people report effective. Imagine your favorite pair of shoes. What makes them great? So this is something that gets students talking. Almost everyone has an opinion. All right, so with that discussion in mind, we start exploring shoes. How do you operationalize what you like about a shoe? And I want to call special attention. Here is a video out of the fashion section of the New York Times. It is about Nike, so it does definitely have a advertising element in there. But there's a lot of mileage. There's a really good visualization of several things: data-informed design decisions, data visualization, recreating an analogous system of study. In the video, they're looking at basketball players, and it's very hard to study them on court, so you recreate it, something we're doing in all of our experiments in class as well. Also, they use a lot of sensors that we use in class. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the engineering portfolio, because that's where students go. And of course, we got that first one, and they are given a business proposition of trying to start up a company. And at first, before they choose what they want to zoom in on, there's a storyline that has them, hey, explore the market. Right out of design school, they draw and come up with some initial designs for 4 different clients. And this first one reveals oftentimes a lot of bias or just what opinions you hold. But then they go and read some interviews from actual clients, which pulls them out of their own head and getting them responding to other humans. And again, we have the minimalist runner, smoke jumper, EMTs, and dancers. And then right from there, go into a design priority table. So just lots of tools from the engineering trade, more details in the teacher calendar, and the task-specific video on that. It does end there with the problem statement. From there, after the discussion of how do we operationalize cushioning, or comfort, we do a lot of tinkering. So really hands-on students working with real life things, numbers, measurements, and trying to put that all together. And to show a support for that from the packet, just jump over and show this packet page. And so looking at cushioning, stability, mass, and traction. And students really can come up with their own design of how to do this. But if they are struggling, or there's just you need the additional structure, there are video tutorials for each one of those that offer a method of measuring them. All right, moving into our anchoring experiment around mathematically modeling impulse. That's not a word that we lead with, though. Really cushioning, or just looking at stomping. So if you stomp, we want to utilize the impact forces in a shoe, which everyone brings up and notices. How do we create a mathematical model to predict that force? And I can see maybe my video is blocking it, but how does the time of this gets operationalized to, how does the time of impact affect the average force, impact force? And you can see with more cushioning, that's going to increase the time, and I'll actually save that till we have the graph right here in front of us. Here is a graph of 4 different stomps. So you can imagine a gentle stomp, medium, hard, hard. Again, more details in the task-specific video on this one, but just wanted to give you a peek. Shows you that it's inverse, no surprise. With more time, if you spread that force, that impact, over more time, there's less force. That gives us impulse, and there's a lot of discussion around technical language here, a lot of supports. This is actually very intuitive. The word impulse never quite rolls off the tongue for a lot of students, but the idea that, yeah, people are very comfortable with cushioning. Okay, and then here's just a peek at the entrepreneur element, where these 2 women start a company that essentially makes an invisible helmet. It's an airbag helmet, so they're actually wearing their helmets right now, even though it doesn't look like it. So I think they called it the invisible helmet. And there's a lot of great discussion beyond the performance expectations that you can get at with this video. All right, and then just the briefest mention of momentum. There are the evidence statements that go pretty deep. So this task, if you want to get to all of the evidence statements in that performance expectation, these videos, 1-day activity will help you get there. Just a quick mention of the conservation of momentum pattern that we establish. But let's move on to Newton's second law. We data mine this. So again, they get a complex data set, and they really need to figure out which 2 columns do they need to answer. And there's multiple sheets, so just another valuable informational text skill. And this also goes and elevates our system analysis. Since we're in the force unit, it makes sense that the system analysis should include free body diagrams and net force. Here, this slide does just show that there is 2 research questions that they're answering. How does unbalanced total force affect acceleration, and how does mass affect acceleration? So again, you can see in the vertical articulation of lab reports, this is a little bit more complex. They got to have 2 questions that ultimately they integrate into a single answer. Acceleration equals total force, or net force, divided by mass. Here's a peek at that system analysis. We saw that in Unit 3, so we want to keep that skill alive. This lab is a teaching moment throughout. It's not just the data discussion, it's not just the mathematical model. We are teaching free body diagrams here, and then just separately the net force, or total force. All right, and then with generous support from the Portland Metro STEM partnership. They were able to work with Intel to get a career connected learning video that talks right, it's connected to what we're doing right here in patterns physics, making that connection. It's not just a great video that's totally disconnected. So they're referencing the tools of science that we are, the engineering practices. It's great. And then finishing with another application, and this is from the Harvard Human Biomedical research area. So cutting edge research, barefoot running, and I want to pop over to the packet to show. Oh, here I'll just quick say that there was a lot of good stuff on Impulse. Here is a picture of that airbag helmet that I mentioned earlier, but I want to hop to Newton's second law and looking at the heel strike around, looking at actual data, current data around heel strikes. And again, you can see there's some graphical information, a data table, and a lot of words. So they go into the last assessment, the design of a shoe, with a lot of practice. So if you look at the summative assessment, that can be intense. But again, that is not something that they go 0 to 60 on. There is, of course, the whole year and then many things that I didn't go into detail at this overview level there to get them ready. But with that, let's take a peek at that. So here is the engineering portfolio. They go in throughout that unit, they redesign as they learn more about their client. And then at the end, I've picked the smoke jumper just to show you that if, let's say it was the group that picked the smoke jumper, there's some design specifications. So they got to use one table and then connect it to some manufacturing. And here's a reading strategy that you can get into in the task specific tutorial on that. Really highly suggested. But again, so you can see there's text, a data table above, there's this table, and then also a graph. And they got to piece all of that together so that they can come up with their data-informed design of their shoe. So I just want to end on, if you want even more details, you can look at the task-specific tutorials and also, of course, the teacher calendar. That is going to have each task, some important narrative, and then all of the activities and resources that you'll need for that task. Thank you.